stuff over here so I can see it. It says we have an excellent connection. No, that's fine. Okay, hey guys. This may be a shorter show than usual because I caught whatever it was Ian had, but glad to tell everyone we did not catch COVID. It's just some other fun virus. So I'm a little bit gravelly in the throat and so forth. And I am going to do my best to answer at least some of the questions. Hi, Brianna, that have been written in while I'm waiting for people to show up here. So somebody wrote in and asked if I could elaborate on how to use a candle to help an earthbound spirit cross over. And that's a good question because, you know, for me it's a simple notion. You just light a candle and there's the light, and you tell the spirit that there's the light and see if the spirit goes or not. And if you feel it leave, you blow out the candle, and when you do that, you've closed the portal between them. So, hi, Alexis. Yay. But to elaborate a little bit, now, I don't use that method because I open up a portal directly and communicate with the spirit. But I came up with this idea for people who may not have that particular ability and feel that they're haunted and are trying to do something to help whatever it is that's stuck in their house to cross over to the other side. So if you're going to use a candle for that, first off, make sure that you focus that intent on the candle before you light it. So if you're going to try to think of what would be a good oil to use for that kind of transition, but something soft and friendly, you know, like lavender, which is calming and everything else. Probably a white candle because you're trying to get them to see the white light, and that would sort of add to that. And when you place your candle and you light the candle, visualize that that flame is actually a doorway to the other side that's suitable for whatever spirit might be stuck in the house. And, you know, come up with a phrasing that you're comfortable with, say it out loud, speak as if you can hear the spirit or know that it's there even if you can't. You know, something like, I know that you're stuck here and I want to help you get to where you need to be, so I call upon your guardian angels or guardian spirit or the loved ones who have passed on to the other side to be here in the light so that they can show you the way and help you find, you know, where you're supposed to be and rejoin with your loved ones on the other side or something to that effect. And light the candle while you're saying that. And then sit and meditate there for a while. If you have a real spirit in your house, you've determined that there's a spirit there because you have felt something, generally speaking. So tune into that feeling and try and stay with that feeling. And when it suddenly goes away, like all of a sudden the light in the room will be brighter, the air will feel cleaner or clearer somehow, fresher, and then you just, at that point, say, you know, the spirit has crossed over to the other side and has gone to where they need to be, and blowing out this candle will close the portal. Or if you don't like blowing out a candle, you can snuff it. So that would be an elaboration on that. So let's see. Brianna says, I hope you get to feeling better. Me too. That was not much fun. But it's not as bad as, so far at least I should say, as what Ian had. He's still sick. He's here in the room with me, but he's just now starting to come out of it on the other side. Michaela says, hey, so glad I finally got to catch one of your lives. I hope all is well and that you are comfortable while you heal. And Alexis says, whoa. So maybe that was in regards to the candle. So we'll keep on going. And make sure that our timer is still working so I don't suddenly keep on talking when there's nobody there, which is what happened last week. I think I went on for 20 minutes before I noticed that somehow the computer had froze and we weren't live anymore. So I'm going to keep an eye on it. So that was the first question. The second question, was, have you ever encountered an earthbound spirit that didn't want to cross over? And personally, the answer to that question is no. I have never encountered an earthbound spirit that was reluctant to cross over at the end. I have met some who were reluctant in the beginning of the process with them. There was a ghost of a young prostitute who was murdered, and she was afraid of going to the other side because she thought that she would be punished and go to hell because of her the way she earned a living. And so, I have encountered spirits who were feeling unfinished, that they didn't excuse me, get myself a lozenge here, that'll help. That they haven't completed a task or told somebody something. And most of the time in those cases, I've been able to explain things to them that, either their loved ones are already on the other side because they've been dead for a while, or, or the reasons why aren't real reasons. Like with the young woman who was afraid that she would go to hell, I told her that there was no judgment in the light and that it was a safe place and a good place to go. And she believed me. Apparently, I'm believable to spirits. So if I ever did find one that was completely reluctant to go, I'm not sure exactly what I would do. I've seen some encounters where people have agreed, like the living and the dead have agreed on where they're allowed to be and what they're allowed to do. And, so some people make an arrangement with an earthbound spirit and say, hey, you can stay in the attic as long as you want, but you can't come into the kitchen and start banging with pots and pans, or we're going to call someone here to make you leave, kind of thing. And if you do make an agreement like that with a spirit, then you need to honor your end of the agreement. And generally, as far as I know, they honor theirs. So I'm going to light this candle. Somebody contacted me and said that their brother was missing in the Philippines. Somehow thinks I can help find him. She's from India. I told her I can't do that, but I would light a candle for her during our show to try and send energy to help whoever is looking for her brother be found, or help her brother find someone to let her know where he is. So that's that. All right. Okay, the person who's calling themselves Dr. Strange can just either be joking or not be part of the live feed because we're not interested in talking about that subject. So Andy says, have you ever dealt with any cases of possession? Well, I had the one where they attempted to possess me, but no, I don't think I have. I mean, I've seen some attachments on people, and there could be some overshadowing kind of thing, influencing and stuff like that, but I really haven't seen any cases of full-blown possession as yet. So I'm open-minded about that since I haven't seen it. I don't know what I will think about it until I encounter it. So Devil Blue says, hello there, Siofra. Well met again this Sunday. How has your week been? Like, Ian, feeling better? Latest video was great. Resonated a lot here. The one on having a purpose. Good. That's been coming up a lot on my personal feeds and groups and things like that, where people sort of go off the deep end and think they have to save the entire world. So I thought I needed to address it, especially after Ian's sister. And we're both sick, and I'm earlier in the sick than he is, because last night was when it really hit me. So that's why I sound funny. But we're doing pretty well. And I decided I'm doing well enough that I could sit and chat with you guys today and answer some questions. If my voice suddenly starts to go, then we'll just have to wrap it up and continue on next week, whenever or whatever we do. So somebody asked me about, they were talking about the incident that I described when I saw the black cords. When I accidentally went to a religious meeting about the end of the world, that I didn't realize that's what it was. And the preacher, minister, pastor, whatever he called himself, had these black energy cords coming out of his stomach and was attaching them to different members in the audience. And I watched it happen. It wasn't in an actual church. I thought I was going to a science meeting on nuclear power. Yeah, I'm very good at ending up in places I don't expect. But anyway, he was asking about those cords, and about the whole experience that I had in religion. He wonders if the black cords that I saw aren't representative of true Christianity, and can true Christianity be something else? Can a person practice magic while working with the God of the Hebrews as a deity? So, considering the fact that the Key of Solomon is based on the Hebrew religion, God, and the spirits and everything else, I see there's no real reason why magic doesn't care what your belief system is. Magic is just sort of an energy and a force that's out there and that you can experience. And whether there's any true anything is up for debate, which is why I've said more than once that I judge people by their actions, not by their beliefs, because beliefs are just that. And a set of beliefs can alter, change throughout time, and have something else going on. So I couldn't do it in particular because I don't feel like I want to activate any of that stuff from my childhood. And, I prefer working with other forces than with those forces. But I know that there's plenty of people out there who identify as Christian witches. And there's plenty of magic in the Bible. The Bible, especially the Old Testament, is just full of hexes and curses and all kinds of things. So, like I said, magic, it doesn't care about your belief system. It's just a thing in itself. And then how you access it and what you do with it and what shape it takes will depend upon your beliefs and the approach that you've taken and whatever it is that, I don't know, that helps you tune into that energy. So, I guess that's my answer. So, let's see. Alexa says, do you anything about aromatherapy? Yes, and aromatherapy can be very helpful. I stay away from it because I'm allergic to most actual scents, although, fantastically speaking, when the fairies come smelling like either amber or lavender, it doesn't make me sneeze. So I'm very happy about that. But there's no doubt that different smells can make you feel different ways, and smelling is probably the easiest way to activate a memory of something. If there was a smell associated with an event that took place, then even if you've not thought about it for a long time, if you smell that smell again, then it'll like pop right back up into your head. So, yeah. And so that's about all I have to say on that, I guess. So, thank you, Double Blues. And he says, do you have any preferred methods of divination? I really don't do much divination anymore. I mean, I have precognitive events, dreams, intuitions, and things like that. But most of the time, I'm not doing strictly divination unless I need to find something out. Like if I'm looking to find something out about something. And I don't usually use the tarot cards at this point in my path. Well, I did for a long time. Crystal balls were something that I used quite a bit, and I have several of those. And I've used them on occasion. I like the idea of water scrying, and I've done some of that. So on a full moon, especially when the moonlight is out and getting the light on the water, and it's sort of an interesting process. But it's not like a real focus of my path right now, trying to find out what's coming. So yeah, there's a lot of them out there. And whatever, some people read birds and bones and all sorts of things. So it depends upon where you are along your journey as to how much divination might be needed or seems important. And it's certainly useful for activating your clairvoyant ability. and being able to travel through time. Do you have any, let's see, how are you today? Sort of sick. Emotionally okay. Andy says, also anyone interested in biblical magic should look up James and Jambres. Okay. Melanie says, hi Siofra, over the past couple of weeks. There's more to that message that hasn't come through. So I guess I will wait. Teresa says, when deity reaches out to you, what is the next step to establish that relationship? All right, so an invitation from a god or a goddess is like an opening of a door kind of thing. And then it's up to us to decide whether or not we're going to keep that door open and allow that energy to come through into us or around us or in our lives and that kind of thing. I don't know that there's any single way of doing that. It's going to depend on the deity. I used to read a lot of mythological stories and things, which helped me to get in touch with certain types of energy. And for me, it's like walking through a store that has statues and stuff, and I see something that kind of goes like, oh, I like that, and then I'll pick it up. That's how we ended up with the Garuda in our temple. So if you're really interested in a specific god or goddess, finding out if they're currently being interacted with in a culture, then find out what its preferred offerings are. Like, does it like honey or, beer or rice or tobacco or, whatever it might be. And that will give you an idea of how to interact with it. Find poetry, prayers, invocations, and evocations that have been written to that specific deity. Learn about its attributes, like, what kind of energy is it? Is it there to help its followers in a specific way? Like Bridget really likes spontaneous utterances because she's a goddess of poetry and healing and, family and the hearth. But as a goddess of poetry and then the arts, she likes to inspire her followers to create things on the fly, whether it's just a invocation or a poem or a song or what have you. So you just sort of try and feel what their energy is about and read some of their stories and try to get the oldest stories about them that you can find, because a lot of those deities, their origins were very different from how we see them now. And if you can find out more about their origins, then you can tap into the older energy that they can represent. All right. So Melody got back on. She says, over the past week, I've had quite a few psychic experiences. One of the experiences was hearing someone's voice talking, then having them come over 10 minutes later. Well, that sounds like a telepathic communication, and I've had that kind of thing happen to me. So that's probably a good sign as far as the link between you and this other person goes. Devil Blues says, how did you spend this full moon? Well, it's supposed to be full tomorrow, so tonight I'm probably going to be doing my Amethyst Crystal Web project and charging that up at least. And I'm not sure what else I might do since I'm not feeling well. And you don't want to do too much intense stuff when you're not feeling well. You want to be on top of your game. But yeah. Says, it was here foggy last night and tonight as well. If the rays of the moon do not hit crystals directly or water, do they still charge with the energy? Well, yeah. Although the charging of water and stuff like that, which is now a current total craze all over everywhere, is not. It's a fairly recent activity, and certainly you can work with the moon energy without charging up any water at all. There's nothing wrong with doing it, but it's also okay if you're not doing it, if you get my drift. But lunar energy has got its own kind of vibrational rate, and generally speaking, I feel differently about charging crystals up than a lot of other people do. For me, it's more enhancing the natural vibration that they have if I'm going to use it to work with, if I have a purpose for it. And if I have given it a purpose, cleansing it means I have to start all over again. So if I'm using it as a magical operation, I don't cleanse and recharge my crystals. If I'm using it just as a thing, like to absorb negative energy, and I don't have a grounding cord on it, then it needs to be cleaned. But if you are using them like that and you put a grounding cord, they naturally cleanse themselves. And then I tend to use selenite to both clean and charge any of my crystals, because it will just automatically get rid of any negative energy that might have accumulated, and will also automatically enhance whatever charge you've put on it. And so that saves a lot of time. I have that large piece of selenite next to my bed, and I put my crystals around it or on top of it, and then I don't worry about it. So, all right. So, Melanie says, I also saw some lights in the sky the next night. One was a meteor, I believe, but I'm not sure about the other. Lastly, I had a very vivid dream that had some strange connections to waking life. Any thoughts on these bursts of psychic energy? Well, that just means that you're developing your clairs, and it's like the ebb and flow of everything. It's like, could be because the full moon is coming, and that energy is energizing your abilities at the time. And if it falls off after the full moon, then you'll know that there's a connection there. Or it could just be your own natural abilities starting to become more obvious to you. As we clear ourselves out and get more grounded and centered, then these things we become more aware of when they happen. A lot of times they've happened in the past and you've not noticed. So that's what I would say about that. Alexa says, how can I make sure that I'm not going to let myself back into the lower vibrational kind of life? I'm not sure what you mean by lower vibrational kind of life. If you mean by the kind of people that you attract and that are around you, having good boundaries is the only clear way of doing that. Knowing yourself, knowing what you're willing to put up with, what you're okay with, what you're not okay with. If you know what you're not okay with and it starts coming, you push it away and you say, no, I don't want that. But you still have to work with yourself, because we have unresolved things that are in us all the time. I had one just come up a few days ago. Woke up in the morning and remembered a traumatic event from my childhood. And so for me, when that happens, if the feeling comes with it, I let the feeling out. I guess that's all I can think of right now. So Sophia says, I know you saying that the psychic abilities, it's just a side effect with benefit and the work. That what we do, it's the main. But how do I get this ability? Do the work and the abilities will come. I'm sorry. Focus on the things that you're trying to develop in yourself. So if you're trying to develop clairvoyant ability, being able to see things, the truth of what they are, then you have to be able to turn that ability inward and look at yourself and see the truth of who you are and where you came from, before you can move forward and to go where you want to go. There's no simple answer to that. There's lots of those meditations out there where you focus a light on your third eye and try to open it up. But, excuse me, the reality of that is, without the work, you don't know what you're getting, if it's accurate or not. People can get lots of visions and have them not be true. So staying grounded is vital to any psychic ability. Like with me, I'd be flying out into outer space all the time and probably would never see me here at all. So Rachel says, do you think magic can change physical features of a person? Well, when you're in the middle of doing a gazing, then that happens quite a lot. I don't know that those features stay changed. I certainly have had that happen when I've been doing channeling, where people have seen a lot of faces on me, and when I've looked at other people, I've seen a lot of faces on them. And I think that some of those are aspects of personality, some of them are past lives. Do you think magic... Oh, did that one. Double Blue says, thank you so much for clarifying that. You're welcome. Welcome. Whatever it was, I clarified. Michaela says, how would you confirm the difference between energetically connecting to someone and just desiring their presence? Well, I guess question one would be, do they want to be energetically connected to you? If the answer to that question is maybe not, then it would be all on your end. That would be how you would look at that. If they're also trying to energetically connect to you, then that would change the equation. I mean, people are energetically connected if they live together, if they're in close quarters with one another on a frequent basis. Anytime our auras are within a few feet of one another, our energies start to mingle and stuff, which is why it's so important to protect yourself when you go out shopping, because then you're mingling with a whole bunch of other people's auras, which is why we focus on developing shields and keeping your energy to yourself. So if you're going to share your energy, you know that's what you're doing. I think that's what that means. Okay. So Midnight says, oh my God, I caught you live. I was just watching your previous live. Well, thank you very much. Welcome. Andy says, if you want to sell one of those crystal balls, I'd gladly buy one from you. No, they're my crystal balls. I'm not selling them. I'm sorry. I have wands that I've made that you can buy on my Etsy site. And those are up for grabs, so, feel free. But I don't have wands. I'm not like a shop or anything. Midnight says, I love you and your channel. I hope you feel better soon. Me too. Yeah, me flying out in space. So, excuse me. So another question that came in was re-larva. Now, we've talked about thought forms and larva. And larvae are usually self-generated little beings that are associated with an activity or a desire or an addiction, like alcohol, tobacco, negative drug use. Any of those things can create their own larva. And the person who wrote the question in wants to know how they can get rid of their own.
Basically, any obsession.
Yeah. And so the video that they were watching had to do with when I was seeing people like in the mental or astral plane and cutting cords between them and whatever that thing was that was in the room with them. And, using Dion Fortune's method for attaching it to myself and then cutting the cord from me, which is not the same thing that you would do if you're trying to cut the cord from yourself. But you can do your own cord cutting. The first thing is to identify what the larva is, what is keeping it alive, and you identify what the issue is that is causing you the trouble. So then you can add like physical things to assist you, like say it's smoking. You can, get patches and, go on a program or, meetings or whatever it is that they have out there, self-hypnosis. There's a lot of different potentials there. And then you can supplement all of that with the magical side of it. My daughter was trying to quit smoking once, and I actually cut her cords. I used my sword. That was kind of funny. She was in the apartment we were living in Medford, and I started wandering around her body with my sword, and then all of a sudden I swung my sword and yelled really loud and startled the living daylights out of her the first couple of times. I didn't want them to see it coming, And it helped to give her a break. It didn't succeed in the end because she ended up smoking again, but then she has quit on her own at this point, so she doesn't have that larva anymore. So if you're trying to cut your own connections, there's the physical cutting idea, like using a knife. But then you can, it came to me that you could actually make your own poppet, make a poppet of yourself, and then you could like attract the cords to the poppet to give yourself a break. I don't know if that would work, but it seems like it might. And then you could cut the cords from the poppet. So, that's a possibility. If you do that, you have to name the poppet yourself. So anything you do to that poppet is going to affect you. And people use poppets for healing and stuff all the time. So that could be one way of doing it if you wanted to actually cut the cords off of you. And with those kinds of things, I use like the athame to cut the cord, and then the fire of the wand to burn the cord, to burn it out of inside of you, because you want to get rid of the residue that's in there, and then burn it from you to wherever the hell it's going, to try and dissolve that. But it's definitely a process. It doesn't happen instantaneously. But the more you know about what it is, the better chance you have of succeeding at it. All right. Midnight says, I love you and your channel. Oh, yes, thank you. I read that one already. Andy says, well, I'm buying a wand from you then. Oh, good. Lou says, I wish I could give you a warm tea with honey. Yes, I've been doing as many natural things as possible. So we've got raw honey. I've got elderberry, echinacea, golden seal, and then some good old cough syrup for nighttime, so I can, survive the night and not be completely sleepless, because sleep is important for that. So we're doing as much of that as possible. And at this point, we're not on any antibiotics because it's pretty clearly viral and they don't work. Michaela says, definitely gave perspective, but what about when you keep getting visions of a person and keep hearing that they will come back, like a karmic cycle in a way? You still have free will, and you have a choice to decide whether you want to have that connection in this life or not. It is entirely up to you. Just because you get that kind of impression, because sometimes it could be the other person trying to give you that impression. Sometimes people are very odd, the things that they do. When I was with this guy, the one who got me into both the incest survivors group and the self-defense class, we were sleeping one night, and I was pretending to be asleep because I didn't want to have anything to do with him at that point, trying to figure out what to do. And he thought I was asleep because he kept trying to interact with me, and I very convincingly stayed unmoved by his attempts. And then he started whispering in my ear, and he whispered, "You're having a complete and total nervous breakdown. There's nothing you can do. I'm the only one who can help you." And he said this 4 or 5 times, and I'm laying there and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm awake and hearing this, so now I know what's going on, but how many times has he done this when I was actually asleep? So, just a word of caution. And just because someone tries to convince you that it's meant to be because it's karma, you don't have to participate in that. It is entirely up to you. That's part of this path of being a witch. You get to choose who you interact with and who you decide to engage. And if you're feeling like they're invading your space, your mental space and spiritual space, you can block them. You can block them psychically and just put up a do not disturb sign that's just specifically for them, and see what happens after that. If there's still a connection, then maybe there's something there or not. Because I can't, do it for you. So Sophia says, I put my dog to sleep today. How can I be sure she's okay on the other side, in the other realm? Well, animals are interesting because they don't have an afterlife the same way we have an afterlife, generally speaking, except for a few rare occasions. They go back to an area in the astral realm that is like all of the dogs of their species and all other dogs and things. And so they sort of add their experience of what happened to them in this life. So I don't think that animals ever go to a bad place. And sometimes they come back to visit. Rachel says, do you think lunar magic can help an unmotivated person? I suppose. I mean, it depends on how unmotivated they are. Tam says, hi there. Is there some methods like meditation or others that would help enhance clairvoyance and clear recognition. By the way, I really appreciate your channel. It is very helpful. So all of the stuff I have up there, especially the early stuff like the sacred tree meditation and the healing chant, are there to help you get grounded, know who you are, and then when your abilities open up, you'll have a safer space from which to explore them. Because if you suddenly wake up one day and can see everything, hear everything, know everything, it usually drives you mad. It's very confusing. And I sometimes have confusing things and annoying things happen to me, like walking through a store and every aisle I walk down, I'm seeing people who've robbed the store down the aisle, taking things off the thing. And I'm like, yeah, but that didn't happen right now. That's either in the future or in the past, and that's pointless for me to know because I can't tell anybody about it. And then I block that. So the main thing is to learn control, and that's the reason for the meditations, is because you're consciously choosing to change your state of consciousness. That's the key, that you are deciding you're going to change your state of consciousness, and that way, when things get too intense or too hectic or you don't feel right about it, you can change yourself back. And then go eat something, And just try not to be in too much of a hurry. I know it's all exciting and everything, but you don't want to go mad. It's not a pleasant place to be. So, I'm not sure how to say that name. Joao Mata. Hello, Siofra. Some people have bad or strange experiences while they're opening the third eye, and some not. Is that normal? I have a friend who claims that this was terrible for him. Well, like I said, unless you know yourself very well, you might be seeing things about yourself, your life, who you are, that you're not ready to face. That's the reason for shadow work, is to give you a more of a structured time in which to face those things. Because like I said, if you're not ready for that kind of stuff, it's not necessarily a good thing. Sophia says, I came across online that yoga is satanic worship. Sorry. And summoning demons to possess your body as proof. They show that, I think you mean Crowley, made yoga book as a demonic worship. Did you hear about this? What do you think?
Crowley's book on yoga has nothing to do with whatsoever.
Yeah, Crowley's book on yoga has nothing to do with demonic worship whatsoever. He wasn't into demonology. Well, he might have been into the Key of Solomon stuff. That word just doesn't roll off my tongue.
His yoga book is just on yoga.
But that sounds like that sounds like basically a religious group that's trying to make sure you don't explore anything that isn't already approved by that particular group. And so for some groups, anything that's not their stuff is demonic.
And Crowley would not be my first choice on yoga.
Right. He's not necessarily your best choice for yoga inspiration. There's lots of other yoga instructors out there that have books that you can get and practice. So, yeah, online they say a lot of stuff that's not true. April says, you may have already mentioned it, but I just tuned in. Any advice for what type of focus of spells magic is most potent with tonight's full moon and lunar eclipse? Full moons are just a great time to get in touch with the lunar gods and goddesses, mostly goddesses, although there's a few male deities that are associated with the moon. Also a good time to enhance your clairvoyant abilities. Going outside if you can in the moonlight is ideal. That's something I loved to do because the moonlight is sort of like a veil between the worlds kind of thing. It shows you other things that might be out there, like, earth spirits or fairies or whatever, nature spirits of different kinds. And it's just plain magical being out, having things lit up in the night. There's just something about it. I remember one time I was driving through the Rockies up in British Columbia on a full moon night, and that moon was so bright that night, it was making its own shadows. And it was like the most amazing thing to be driving through these tall, bare mountains with all their crags and stuff and their shadows moving around depending on where we were and where the moon was lighting them up. So getting in touch with our cycles is part of what the moon is about. I mean, it shows us that things come and go. They become full, then they go back to not being visible, and then they do that over again, just like the tides that come in and go out. So the moon has a lot to teach us when it comes to that. If you have a specific working you're trying to do, and the lunar energy, usually it's best to do it just before the moon is completely full, because if you want to get like the as much energy as possible, considering the fact that there's only a minute where the moon is completely full. I usually like to do it like the day before the moon is supposed to be full, so I know that I'm getting it before that actual totality of lunar energy. So I've used lunar energy for a lot of different stuff, personal workings, healings, connections with others. When I was a kid, there was this thing about the moon and, being seen by other people. My brother used to sing that song, I see the moon and the moon sees me, that kind of thing. And certainly it can really be kind of intense. Lunar energy can affect people, which is why, of course, lunatics and lunacy were named after Luna, the moon, because of that. Not everyone is as affected by it as other people. But if you're trying to do like a banishing, cord cutting, or something like that, you probably want to do it on the waning moon. So after the moon is full, you would do something like that, and then the idea is as the moon diminishes, so does that connection you're trying to get rid of diminish until it's gone when the moon disappears on what scientists call the new moon, and what a lot of witches call the dark of the moon. Scientists, when they say the new moon, they don't mean the crescent moon that just first shows up after the dark of the moon. They mean the dark of the moon. That's what they call it. So sometimes there's confusion with actual words, what they mean and stuff. Well, apparently I'm on a roll. Devil Blue says brilliant. Michaela says thank you so much. Thank you so much. Aha, yes, I also find it funny. Have you interacted with any fae recently? A couple of nights back, I had several of them come in and show me their faces. And they were showing me some of the what we would consider less aesthetically pleasing faces that they have. And I think they're just trying to get me used. I almost started laughing at one of them, and I resisted the urge. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. No, it's not that you're funny looking. It's like, wow, that's different. So they're still coming, but of course when you're sick, you're not getting as much of that kind of thing. And coming off of the psychotic break we had to deal with like almost 2 weeks ago now, things are still a little bit on edge, psychically speaking, in our house, because we're committed to not letting her come back in the house, and so we're being much more alert of doors locked and that kind of stuff. So we're still kind of feel like we're waiting on the edge of something to see what's going to come next. So it's not as easy to be as grounded in that. So there's that. Yay! Star 23 finally made it to a live show. So another question that came in was, when you talk about energy vampires, are those living, breathing people or spirit beings? And the answer to that is they can be both. You can have an energy vampire that's a spirit being, I'm sure, because there's no reason why they couldn't be. Not like, okay, when people go to bars and get drunk, earthbound spirits often follow them home. They actually hover around people that are inebriated because our barriers are down, not just our emotional barriers, inhibition kind of things, but also our psychic barriers are down. And so if you want to find out about that, that would be a place to go and watch people without drinking yourself, so that you can actually see the interactions or sense the interactions between them and another spirit being. As far as real life vampires, they're people who steal energy from other people. It's like instead of taking or absorbing energy that's free for all from the earth or from the life force, the air that is in everywhere through everything, they choose to take it from living people. And often, if they can get them to agree to it, it becomes, they call people who allow them to feed, knowing that they're feeding, thralls. And you can get a good idea from the name what they mean by that. It means that you're under their control, and you've volunteered to be under their control. And so, and they get I guess, a psychological as well as a psychic boost from that, being able to dominate somebody. So that's the answer to his question. Okay, good, we're still on. Thought I'd check. So another question was, if intention and vibration are the root factor, does it matter how big my crystals are? Are chips the same as stones? And the answer is yes, you can use chips. You don't have to use big giant honking crystals, although they're fun to look at and nice to have around. They're not very portable. And it's not that they have inherently more energy, because on a vibrational level, all of the crystals are running at the same vibration. So, I mean, we use chips for certain things, and we use larger stones for other things. It just sort of depends upon what we're trying to do. Okay, so Sophia says, is there a shadow work witchcraft that is not pagan and not relied on gods and goddesses? The shadow work, as far as I know, doesn't have to have anything to do with the gods or the goddesses. It's your interpersonal work. So you don't have to do witchcraft to do shadow work. You can go see a therapist, and you can do, hypnotic regression, or shadow work at its core is basically being able to find out where the things that are bothering you or the things that excite you come from. So if you're immediately attracted to something, and you have no clue why, doing shadow work around that attraction might get you to, well, when I was 7 years old, they put me on a pony and I really liked that ride. I liked the feeling it gave me. I liked how my parents reacted to me being there. I liked riding the horse, and now I'm in love with horses. Or if it was a negative thing, you got on a horse and it made you cry and it scared you, then you don't like horses anymore. But the point of that is to find out what is the core reason, what's the event, the event that started it all. And a lot of times we respond to people's faces and the way they look, not because of them, but because of who they remind us of. And I know, like, when my father was still alive, even though I'd not seen him since I think I was 17, maybe, last time I saw him. Until he actually died, I was always looking for his face. So every man who looked anything like my father had similar features or whatever. I had to scan them pretty closely to make sure that they weren't him. And I really wasn't aware of doing that at the time until he died. And then I suddenly didn't have to watch for his face anymore because I knew he was in the ground. And the lack of having to look for him made me notice that I had been looking for him. So that's one example. But say, you're the victim of some kind of violence, whether it's sexual or physical violence or just intense emotional violence. Anyone who looks similar to that person can trigger that for you. And so shadow work is about finding out what the trigger is, why the trigger is there, and then doing stuff to heal from it. So then you can make a more informed choice, more in the moment decision, because just because they're not that person doesn't mean that they're safe. It doesn't mean that they're not safe. It's like the projection can overshadow the information that you need to get through something. So you don't have to have any gods or goddesses or even any magic or witchcraft involved in doing shadow work. The idea is to become a healthier human being and create better boundaries for yourself and have a more informed choice for your life decisions. So you're making them from a solid centered place instead of randomly being pulled this way or that way by an unidentified experience that you have from the past that's pulling you in that direction. Hopefully that explains that a bit. So Lindsay says, do you do any manifestation rituals? Now, I've heard this be banded around, and I'm not sure what people are currently meaning by manifestation rituals. So maybe you could explain that, or someone could explain that to me, exactly what they mean. I don't think that they're meaning evocations, which would be the complete materialization of a spirit being onto the earth plane so that you can have a conversation with them. I'm pretty sure that's not what they're talking about, but I'm not entirely sure. So if what you mean is like getting money, that kind of thing. I think I just defined what shadow work is in talking about it. It's finding out who you are and where you come from and what hurts and what doesn't and what you like and don't like and why, so that you can decide who you want to be. And that's part of this whole process. Magic allows us to reform our subconscious in a way that regular psychology can't. I did do a video on shadow work. You can check that out and see if that helps with more information about it. So, I think I have another question that was written in, or two, while we're waiting. Okay, so a person had questions about wands, and I've done a bunch of different videos on some of my various wands, and the impression I gave was that the usual description of a wand is a tool for directing energy in a direction at something or somewhere or someone. And they get the sense that when I use wands, that I use them differently, and that for me it is not about directing energy, but about storing energy, which I can then later access when I choose to. And they want to know if that's a correct interpretation of me. So then I'll get back to that. This looks like Devil Blues has put up an interpretation of manifestation. Water manifestation, programming affirmations into the water on the new moon, and having a sip of it daily to pull in the vibration of those wishes into the material world is what I understand. Well, I've certainly used the elements to send messages. So I do elemental work that way, but I suppose that would have been a manifestation when one of our former members was going to leave with our copy of Babylon 5 and some of our books, and we couldn't get a hold of her, and so we started putting messages in all of the elements, one after the other, and she arrived on our door and said, "Please stop, here's your stuff." So I guess that's a yes. We've done manifestation work, if that's what you mean. So Midnight says, I remember you mentioning that you wanted to visit Iceland one day. I hope to live there for a while. I'm curious to what the fae there are like. Yeah, me too. Sounds like marvelous. And is it Mella? Thank you so much for all your wisdom, your videos. You're welcome. And April says, I've been trying to very conscious of respecting closed practices in my magic. I've been drawn to candle magic and seen a lot of success with it, but I was wondering if it is exclusive to hoodoo. Well, no, I don't think so, considering the Catholics use candle magic all the time. If you go into one of their churches, you'll find candles for the dead, candles for the living who are sick and need to be healed. Candle magic is one of the oldest forms of magic, and it crosses a whole pile of cultures. So,
yeah, in Brazil, it's actually called candomblé.
Yeah, so Brazil has its own form of candle magic. This candle magic is everywhere, so I don't think that you are appropriating a culture by using candles. And if you are, I guess that's, I don't, I would not worry about it. And, Santeria uses candles. They have the saint candles that you can buy in most grocery stores, are the ones that the Santeros use in their celebrations. And so that is not necessarily hoodoo. I mean, voodoo is different from Santeria. They're very similar and they have some common roots and things like that, but they are also some differences, and there's lots of other variations in there between the different types, like Palo and Voodoo and whatnot. So I don't know. If it worries you, then don't do it, I guess, but it doesn't worry me. Yes, Iceland looks gorgeous. I agree. So as far as the wands are concerned, I use them differently than just the basic wand. My first wand that's how I used it, is to draw a circle, to focus the fire energy for like banishing rituals that I was doing. And I wasn't using it as much as I would my Athame. That was probably my most commonly used tool at the time. But when I made my first planetary wand was the solar wand, and that was the madrone tree that allowed its branch to fall into our hands, like from a living tree. And what I find when I'm making that kind of a specific wand, the manufacture of it is a learning experience for me. It allows me to tune into that specific kind of energy and to learn about what it's for and how it works, do meditations on it. And then I store energy from that particular sphere in it. And then later, if I need to use it and direct it at something, I've used my solar wand for healing in the past. It's also good for cord cutting because it has that nice fire aspect to it because it really burns things up, being the sun's heat is pretty good. But the healing, because of the life giving energy of the sun's rays coming to Earth and allowing the plants to manufacture chlorophyll and release oxygen. So there's this whole relationship kind of thing that I got out of making it. And so each of those wands that I've made have had that kind of specific purpose, and the making of it tunes me into the energy of what I'm wanting to work with, the kind of energy I want to work. So if I want to work with that energy, holding that wand, meditating with that wand, helps to bring me into compatibility. It makes my energy compatible. Like if I'm working with lunar energy, I'm not going to switch immediately to solar energy, and vice versa, because they have very naturally opposing kind of energies. And so that wand allows me to make that shift and tune into that energy easier. So I guess it's sort of a yes to that person's question. Making sure I'm still working. Yes, I am. Okay. So, somebody wanted to know how elaborate my workings are, and it depends on the working. I don't do a lot of spell work in particular at the moment. I never did. I mean, in the beginning, I didn't do any at all, except for the kinds of inner workings, like working with my inner child and doing rituals to heal my past, and while I'm going through therapy, which is part of the whole shadow work kind of thing, using magic to supplement that. But when I do an actual spell for myself or for someone, then it depends on what it is, how elaborate it becomes. If it's an emergency, I can do anything, anywhere, anytime with nothing at all. But it takes a lot more energy to do it that way. And it works best when you know what you're doing and have had experience with doing it. I've done a couple of spells that were very elaborate. Like the truth spell I used was pretty elaborate, and I had to buy, a beef tongue for it and all this other stuff. And mostly I do a lot of research to find out what I need to do. So it's not an easy question to answer. There's just a lot of possibilities there. I guess that's the easiest way to say that. Generally speaking, no. Like lighting this candle for the man who's lost in the Philippines. I just thought about it and lit the candle. I've had good luck with people finding others that way. I had a client once who called me up and her daughter was missing, and we decided it was an emergency because she was like 5 hours late or something. So we grabbed a candle, charged it up, put her name on it, started, focusing on it, lit it, and then within 10 minutes the woman called and her daughter just walked through the door. So that was that.
What strikes me, point out that there's artistry, also adherence to next steps of the other end. almost a mechanical point of view towards it, or you can veer towards the artistic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely more in the artistic, magical kind of thing, but I do a lot of elaborate stuff with you, like with the evocation work. So it's not something I don't do or can't do. Right.
You just don't need to do it.
It's just not something I'm needing to do for any reason. I'm happy where I am. I'm happy whom I'm with. I'm, I don't have anything in my life right now that I feel I need to change. No overriding impulse to make something happen for me. And that's generally the reason people do spell work, is because they're trying to accomplish a specific thing. So. Okay, so let's see. Midnight says, it's so gorgeous. What energy do you feel when you look at different types of crystals? Do they each have their own personality or look energetically? Yeah, actually, they do. That's when I was playing around with that bismuth. It looked like it was a caterpillar, or a moth caterpillar, because it had these fuzzy little spikes on it that were all spread out and close together like the hairs on them are. And like with my solar wand, or my Saturnian wand, it has a ball of energy on the end of it, because it's got 3 points, and apparently those 3 points together are creating an energetic ball on the top of above them. So that's different. And like most of my other wands, it's an energy stream that comes out of the point of the wand or the crystal. And I've met a couple of crystal intelligences. I'm not sure what to call them. The kyanite was the first one that did that, and came and introduced itself to me and stood by my bed until I realized it was there and looked at it, and it didn't change shape or anything, which is one of the ways of identifying whether it's an actual thing or if it's just like some random movement of lights in your head. If you see something and it doesn't change shape at all, you can be pretty confident that something is there. At least that's how I feel about it. And I definitely seem to have green in my energy field. Not just because I'm wearing green today, by the way. That experience with the bismuth was like that, where I saw that glowing emerald green hand when I moved my hand, when I was looking at the energy and looking at the energy between my fingers and stuff. I could start seeing the green. The other day I was looking at my aura, and I saw a lot of violet in there as well. So that was sort of interesting. It's like there's different layers to your aura, and I'm sure that the aura changes color depending on how you're feeling, emotionally as well as physically. So some people are really excellent at reading them and can identify organs that aren't functioning properly because they can see a blockage in the aura, which is kind of a cool thing to be able to do. Okay, we're still on. Just checking. So I ran through all of my questions as far as that goes, but I would like to, I don't know, mention one thing here, and that would be I don't respond to emotional manipulation. This is just a thing that happened recently, and, it doesn't work on me. So if I say no to something, then it means no. That's just sort of the way that is. And I don't change my mind because I don't say no just because. I say no because I don't think that's something I either should do or can do. And yelling at me about it doesn't make me change my mind, just so you know. All right. So Teresa says, how would you start shadow work in addition to therapy? Well, starting therapy would be the beginning of shadow work. So, I mean, it's a lifetime process of getting to know yourself. And that's just the word that has become like, the key notion or whatever, a phrase that people are using now for that, getting to know who you are. Alexis says, will I always just know what to do if I trust myself and follow my desire? Well, if you know who you are, then you will be following your true will. Yeah, true will and instincts are not necessarily the same thing. Right, and desires can be different too. So Yeah, words are tricky. I'm one of those people, I try to be precise with my words. But anyway, my spirit guide, when I started channeling, told me to follow my heart. And that was the advice that she gave me. And that opened up a whole series of questions. How do I know what my true heart feels? What does that mean, follow my heart? How will I recognize what it is? And that actually probably started a phase of shadow work for me, trying to understand that phrase of following your heart. Because it's not just what I want or what I think I want. It's what's my true heart's desire and need. It's like, what is going to fulfill me? What path should I be on? And what path do I want to be on? So there's no straight answer to that question. Devil Blue said, lovely. I also saw some violet. Can you see other people's auras remotely? Not generally, but I've had it happen a couple of times where I've seen a picture and I've seen a color around it. I'm not completely confident that they're not using a filter of some kind that makes me see that color, so I don't know. It's a good question. Alexis says, in stress situations and moving forward in life, following your desire. Well, trusting yourself is important, and making mistakes is okay. I mean, none of this means that you don't make a mistake. You might think this is what you want to do, and then start to do it, and then realize this isn't really what you thought it was, because your idea of what this was and what it actually is are not the same. And that's what life is about, experiencing it, making mistakes, and getting more information, and then modifying your course of action and, what you choose to focus on. So it really is, it's one of these self-generating kinds of things. And I used to hate the idea of making a mistake. When I was little, I wanted to be a saint, and because I thought if I was perfect, then there would be no bad things happening in my house. And that's a childish view, but I was a child. And so it's not an uncommon view for children to think whatever happens around them is their fault. And so if it's my fault, if I change myself, then all this will go away. And so it took me a long time to actually get to the point where I could admit when I made a mistake. It's like you try something and it doesn't work. Instead of trying to prove to yourself that you're not wrong and everyone else is wrong, if you can look at the mistake and go like, that didn't work very well at all, so why didn't it work? What's about this situation? What am I missing? What do I need to learn? If you're going to be a famous painter, you need to know what paints work and how they work and what they do and what the colors do and so forth. And in the beginning, you're going to make lots of mistakes because you're learning that. It's experience that teaches you, not the lack of mistakes. Okay. So Midnight says, my spirit guide told me the same thing. I think that's a common thing, follow your heart. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not in the spirit guide handbook. Let's see, where is she at right now? Okay, follow your heart. That should keep her busy for about 20 years. Let's see where we end up with. Basically told me always take the joyful path and not live for others. Yep. If you can't live for yourself, no one can live for you. So there you go. Emily says, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. You're welcome. I'm glad that it's useful. And, like I've said before, you are certainly free to ignore anything and everything I say, because the path is yours to take, not mine. Devil Blue says, among the darker crystals, if you say they have the same vibration, the darker crystals used for protection, then all work the same. For example, between maroon, black obsidian, onyx, and jet. Well, they can all do the similar thing because of their color and their properties, but they have slightly different variations. Like obsidian, no matter the color, is going to have the tendency to absorb negative energy. I'm not sure if mahogany obsidian has a more precise type of negative energy it might absorb. Jet is definitely not a stone, for one, because it's compressed coal. It's it becomes stone-like, just like amber is not a stone either. It's a petrified resin, and jet is petrified coal, and so its properties, it has a lot of properties of not just absorbing negative energy, but also rejecting and negative entities and energy from outside of yourself. So it's a good one to have around because apparently negative things don't like it. And black tourmaline is another one that's like that, where negative energy and spirit beings and stuff that are negatively charged don't like to be around them. So they chase them away. And onyx is, I think onyx is a type of marble. I'd have to look that one up. Onyx definitely comes in a lot of different colors. So, yeah. I have about 5 different crystal books that I look at, and I try to, like talk to the crystal, find out if it has other things in mind. Like with the kyanite, a lot of the sources say that it related to water, and it doesn't feel like water at all to me. It feels like refined air. It's not just the element of air, but kind of the air on another plane of air. And that's the definite energy that I got from it the first time I picked it up. So, all those things are approximations from other people's notions about what they are and what they can do based on a system that they're following. If they're following the rainbow chakra system, then all red stones will be for your root chakra. And so they might not mention hematite, which is a really good root stone because of its heavy iron content and its solidity. So yeah, and you can make a stone do something it's not naturally inclined to do, although it's a waste of its natural energy. So if you're going to use crystals, stones, rocks, and resins and things like that, the more you find out about what their natural vibrational energy is, then the better able you can pick the right one that works for you. Of course, like today, I'm wearing a tiger eye necklace that I made, along with my green tiger eye that I've been wearing just as a regular protection, because I just decided I wanted to put this one on too today. So, yeah. And that's the nice thing, is you can charge up jewelry and wear it. And then other people will just think your jewelry looks awesome and have no clue that it's actually serving another purpose. Easier for the women, but there's a lot of jewelry that men can wear too, like bracelets and amulet kind of things under their shirts and that kind of stuff. So you just be creative with that. Oh. Okay. Devil Blue says, which would offer the strongest protection, or is it based on personal preference? I guess I didn't see that question, but I accidentally answered it. I don't know who's lying. Someone says stop lying. TDB something or other says, where can I get herbs and crystals without my mom becoming suspicious? Well, herbs you can get from her kitchen cupboard. There's a lot of herbs in there that are used for magical stuff. You've got your sage, your rosemary, your cayenne, your bay leaf, your cinnamon, thyme. I made scrying candy one year out of parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme tea, because that's an old formula for having visions. And I made it into a hard candy, which actually worked pretty good. So you can be creative with what's in her kitchen cupboard. If you don't take the whole jar, just don't take all of it, just take a little bit. And if you have any growing in your yard, then you can pick it fresh. I don't know if you have a yard, and if you have any herbs and spices and things like that grow in the yard. There are some things you can use for magical purposes. There are food groups, like different peppers, dried peppers and things that you can use. I think I used those in my Four Thieves vinegar. I put in some hot peppers as well as black peppercorn. So as far as that goes, the herbs are easy to come by if she has an herb rack or a spice rack, I guess. And crystals, well, it depends on what they are. If you have small ones that you can keep in your pocket, then she's probably not going to notice. I don't know. I'm not going to encourage you to lie to your mother, but you have a little pouch or something you can put some crystals in and put it in your pocket and keep it under your pillow when you're sleeping or something like that, so it's always around you and near you, so no one's going to find it accidentally. Then you can probably do that, and you can work with the smaller, like chips and things like that, so that they're not taking up too much room, and start learning about the different crystals and what they do and what they mean, and doing some research. And then, of course, when you move out of the house, you can put them all over your cupboards if you want, and have your own altar and everything else. So at some point, you won't have to worry about that. Devil Blue says, "Thank you. I learned so much from you here." You're welcome. Well, you can just go to hell, Ghostly, if you're going to be like that. This is not your channel, it's mine. Emily says, "Do you have a favorite element? Do you have a favorite aspect experience of your craft?" I work with them all, so I don't have a favorite one. So I think we're going to end up, when we're done with this, blocking that idiot. I don't think I can do that while I'm here. Let me see if that's possible. I've never tried that before. No, that's just a random thing. That doesn't tell me anything there. Well, I'm going to ignore it, but it's just obnoxious. I don't care for obnoxious people. So, thank you. Canary says, "Any tips on scrying? I thought I'd take to it really well, as I often do see spirits, but I'm actually having a hard time with it." Well, undoubtedly, that is because of the confusion between your own thoughts and being able to see stuff. So again, grounding, centering, clearing your own thoughts, meditating to have as clear of and blank a space inside of you as you can, knowing who you are so you can tell the difference between a vision and your own stuff. It's the work. You just have to do the work. Someone's standing up for me. And I agree. If you don't want to, listen to what I have to say, I'm fine with that. I'm not trying to push myself down anybody's throats. Speaking of throats, ugh. But anyway. So we've been a little over an hour. Hey, Taylor, hello. Apparently someone just arrived. I guess I won't leave this instant then. Hi, how are you? You have a little kitty cat icon. Oh, good. They already reported them. They did it themselves. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not opposed to other people defending my honor. And that's okay. I don't listen to people who say stupid things because, what do they know? They don't really know anything about me. Usually bullies are like that. They just do their thing. What would you like me to talk about right now? Hello, hope you're doing well. Well, yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm getting another lozenge. That's why I can keep talking. I know Yule is coming up, and because of so many weird things going on with people thinking they were here to save the world, I did that video instead of the witch's balls because it's going to take me some preparation time. So if I don't get to it this coming week, then I will definitely do something about Yule, the upcoming holiday, and that kind of stuff, so we can start getting ready for that change in the season and the solar winter solstice. My words are getting jumbled in my brain. So we'll do something about that. Can you talk about how to feel more connected to the environment? Well, okay, so what I did as a kid, I would go outside and I would find a patch of grass like that big and sit on the ground, and I would watch it and notice all the different life that was happening and all the activity in that patch of grass. I did a lot of meditating with my back to trees and trying to tune in to the energy of the trees. And the only way to get in touch with the environment is to interact with it and be out there in it and feel it. The tree meditation, if you do that outside, would be phenomenal for connecting you with your area. But even indoors, you can still feel a connection to the earth once you make it. Going for walks in the woods, touching other life forms, like, touching the leaves of the tree and putting your hand on the bark. Not too much, because apparently some of them get fatigued. Right. If you're out in a place you really like and you can just get a rock that you find on the path or on the ground or whatever, ask for permission to take the rock so that you can remember the energy of the place, and then you can take that back to your house with you, and then you can meditate on that and then visualize being back in that place that you like. And that will start to develop that psychic connection and energetic connection between you and your environment. If there is someone in the chat you trust, they can work as a moderator to remove people. Well, we only have the one computer right now that's doing this, so if it happens more, we'll give that a shot. Just wanted to let you know an eagle came and landed in a tree overhead. I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains, which I know you have a connection to. Oh my, yes. I lived in Santa Cruz for about 5 years. Do you have any special animal connections? I definitely am connected to birds, just in a general sense for some reason. But my spirit power animals, I have the bear, Black Panther, and the deer would be the three main animals on various levels that I interact with that are part of my magic. And the bear and the deer are both considered healing animal magic. It's healing magic in certain native tribes. I had a sweat with a woman who used bear magic for her sweat lodge, and she talked about bear being a spirit for healing. And I'd heard about deer from other people. So, interpreting dreams, I don't think we have enough time to get into that right now, but I did do a video on it. You can look it up. And I would recommend doing a dream journal and learning your own dream symbols, because a book that says how to interpret your dreams is like potentially useless to a whole group of people, because they're just generalized things that someone decided this is what it means in a dream, but it's what it means in your dream that you want to know. So, if one has real animal bones in the house, can the residual energy of the animal spirit cause any harm to the new owner somehow? I don't know. I guess it depends on how the animal died and how you came across the animal bones. I mean, animal bones can have a connection to the spirit of the animal.
Unless somebody charged them up or something.
Right, unless somebody specifically charged them up and then they were disturbed, which could cause some kind of a magical backlash. Understanding how they connect to daily life. Talking about how to connect with nature would be great. Hi, I'm arriving late. Apologies. Do you believe all dreams are messages of some sort, or do you think some of them are just our brains processing the day-to-day stuff? I think they can be both of those things. I think it depends on the dream. And some dreams can be all of them. Some dreams might be something you've noticed during the day that your brain's trying to warn you about, plus a part of your personality that your dream wants you to learn more about, potentially knowing something about someone else in your life who may or may not be a danger or a positive thing, and a past life. Symbols can be interpreted in a lot of ways, and dreams use symbols to communicate.
Communicating with yourself, your subconscious.
So Alexis says, I understand it could be symbolism, but does it have to do with deepening my connection to understanding those symbols? By paying attention, simply, maybe. Quite possibly. I had that one tarot deck that a card arrived every night as I was going to sleep and showed itself to me and explained to me what it meant. So
Symbols can teach themselves. Too,
Yes,
if
symbols
they're
can
open
teach
to it.
themselves. So, I watch cats play with Fae all the time. Can Fae manipulate electricity? I think they may be playing around me. I don't know, it's possible. Or it could be a different kind of ghost or spirit. Star 23 says, I'm going on a ghost investigation soon. Any tips to help me not bring back my negative attachments? Well, don't invite any of them to come home with you. I went on one paranormal investigation given by a person here who's running a club. And while we were in this club, or in the middle of it, and she's inviting the spirits to come and like make the EM reader go up and down and whatever and communicate with us, she says out loud, if any of you want to come home with us, feel free. Our homes are open to you. And I said, what? No, my home is not open to you. So when you're leaving the place, I would say, no spirits from this place are allowed to follow me home. That's it. You just put your foot down, set your boundary, and go like, no. If you're still worried about it, have something on you that will like reject negative spirits like black tourmaline or a piece of jet or anything else you might have that you can program to spread stuff out. Yeah. Okay, guys, I am definitely falling down here. And so I didn't get to a couple of questions, but I am going to have to go before I fall over in a dead faint. I'm feeling kind of weird in my brain. So thank you all for coming, and I'll talk to you all later. Enjoy. Bye.